With your kind permission, ma'am, can we start?
Sure, we can.
Good morning to everyone present here. I, Avneet Kaur, delegate of Sambhav Initiative and moderator of this event. On behalf of organizing committee, I extend a warm welcome to our esteemed dignitary, Dr. Varsha Bhagat Ganguly, ma'am, and to all the participants in this seventh day of 15 days online National Capacity Building Program on land, real estate, and property laws, jointly organized by Sambhav Initiative, which is working towards alternative dispute resolution, free legal aid, mental health, and creating legal literacy. Organized this program under the vision of Patron in Chief of Sambhav Initiative, Honorable Mr. Justice C.K. Thakkar, sir, former Judge of Supreme Court of India, and Patron of Sambhav Initiative, Honorable Mr. Justice M.R. Shah, sir, former Judge of Supreme Court of India, and Pro Bono India, which is working towards legal literacy and legal aid, where today's session is all about women and land rights in India. Before we start the session, please adhere to some webinar etiquettes. I request all the attendees to keep their microphones muted during the session. If you have any questions, please use the chat box or raise your hand. It is my privilege to introduce our esteemed dignitary, Dr. Varsha Bhagat Ganguly, ma'am. Ma'am has been a professor at Nirma University Institute of Law, LBSNAA, Missouri, and a fellow at the Indian Institute of Advanced Study, Shimla. Her extensive research based publications include 17 books, 30 articles, 6 book reviews, and several online publications. Ma'am has worked as a managing editor of 3 academic journals published by the premier institutions of India. Her recent publication by the Rulage on Land Issues are The Land Question in Neoliberal India in 2021, Journey Towards Land Titling in India in 2017, and Land Rights in India, Policies, Movement and Challenges in 2015. 3 editions of the Land Rights in India are published. Ma'am has been teaching a course on land laws at the Institute of Law, Nirma University, as well as associated with state and national level networks that works of women's land rights. We are deeply honored to have you with us today, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Um, Thank you for having me here. I'm sorry, my camera is not working properly. It goes on and off on its own. So kindly pardon me for that. So here is the presentation. I've already shared the presentation, and I'm hoping that it's visible. Yeah.
Yes,
Presentation is
ma'am. Yes,
visible, right?
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
So what I'm going to talk about is that I'm trying to contextualize women's land rights in a larger context of women and gender development. So basically, when we talk about this, we usually feel that why we are talking about women's land rights separately when the law has given equal rights. But then the situation is that largely whenever we talk about women in development, we always, or gender in development, we always not feel, it has been persistently found that there is a discrepancy in land holding pattern among the men and the women. So I will begin with this, that when we talk about land rights, we know that women have two sources to earn their rights. One is vis-a-vis family, that is the in form of ownership, which comes through inheritance or purchase or the fragmentation of the land holding of the family. While vis-a-vis state, redistribution, that is, we call it land reform. So if land reform takes place and redistribution by the state is undertaken, then women are eligible for land ownership. Also, transfer of or regularization by the state, for example, Forest Right Act, other administrative procedures, or the tenancy arrangements. So this is the broad picture that I'm giving, that all of us actually are eligible, our land rights, our and land entitlements are rooted in this manner. But for women, inheritance is more important because although there are succession laws, Hindu Succession Act and Indian Succession Act, we have witnessed that there has been a lot of inequality and injustices that women have faced for land entitlement. So I begin with the argument, as I said. And so you see that the considerable gender gap in land ownership is persistently and glaringly visible. Data about women land ownership is available in a very limited manner, but it is still not uniform. There are a lot of discrepancies that have been observed, and I'm going to share very soon about that in the next slide. What we found basically that there is the data gap is so puzzling and it's so widely discrepant that we really wonder that what kind of policy making is possible in this given scenario. And even there are laws, the procedures are laid down, and yet uh, gender segregated data are either not available or available which are very discrepant in nature. So how do we go about it? And that's where I come to the discourse on women and land rights. Uh, if you look at this slide very carefully, you are able to make that until 2019, there were not so many data sources which really worked on women and land rights or women and land ownership per se. Um, and you can see that NFHS, that is National Family Health Survey, which was conducted in 2019, and AIDI's data, that is All India Debt and Investment Survey in 2019, as part of National Sample Survey. The data, there is so much gap in the data that you can see that NFHS data says that there are 31%, 31.7% women and 43.9% women own land alone or jointly. As against this, ADIS data shows only the 5.5% women aged between 15 and 45 years owning any land, and 36% men aged between 15 and 54 years of land owning any land. Now, this discrepancy, there have been some 2, 3 writings on that, but those writings do not show, they do talk about the limitation of data collection on women land ownership, but they do not otherwise are able to reflect the ground reality which exists on women and land ownership. The other details which are mentioned in the slides are 8.3% Indian women own land alone, 13% own a house alone, 29% women jointly own. But overall, so if you see, the women land ownership is not even going into double digit. That is a major, major concern for women in land ownership. And I'm sure when I talk about women and land rights, I am going to talk about sort of rights in a very wide perspective, because when we say rights, it's not just only the claims or not just only the ask, or it's not just only the entitlement, but rights include, uh, one is the ownership, second is the access, control, and management to land. Third is the usufruct rights and use of the land. So these are when we talk about rights and land rights, these are the gamut of a bundle of rights that we always talk about. And please keep this in mind that I'm not restricting women and land rights in terms of only the ownership or entitlement, but it is also the usufruct right. It is also the access, which is very important. It is also the control and management, maybe in terms of lease, maybe in terms of tenancy arrangement, maybe in terms of any other form of land holding. That is very, very important. Now, when I say rights perspective, again, I am saying that it's not restricted to claim, but usually when we talk about rights, what we try to establish is that it's a vision of society. So when we say your right should be, you are rightfully sort of engaged, or this is your right and your right is exercised to be exercised, it is basically that this is how we want that particular person to realize whatever that one deserves as a human being in the given society. And that means that it is a vision of the society. So that is why we say, oh, it is, you deserve this is your right. And so please keep this in mind that this is a vision of the society as well. Now, when it comes to law, we always say the vision is narrowed down and reflecting in law as a mirror. And the process is that happens through a codification. So that process of codification of rights is very, very important, because then we are able to decide women in which form that they are able to, or whether in some form of women they are able to ask for their entitlement and right. For example, as daughter-in-law, and you know that or as mother and as mother-in-law. And so we all know that although some and now most of the laws codified women in every form, that is daughter or daughter-in-law, or mother or mother-in-law, not mother-in-law per se, but yes. So, but that codification is very, very important, because we really need to check that the laws that are land laws that are existing, or the property laws, whether they have mainstreamed the gender or whether they are engendered. Whether they and with this mainstreaming of gender, whether they ensure equality and equity, and that kind of codification in law itself, the procedure itself, which culminate actually into the land entitlements for women, or in terms of gender equality. And the fourth very important part is that when we talk about gender equality, equity is resource equity that we aim at, because we all know that land is such a resource, which is an asset, which is a wealth, which is a status, and it has to do a lot of other things with human lives and in a society. So this is the rights perspective that I wanted to sort of make you understand in a very broader way. And then we are going for women and land rights. So the discourse on women and land rights, what we try to sort of expand is through this various boxes that you are able to uh, look at. So it has to do with first, of course, the property. Second is, matlab, these are all known features. So I am just trying to share them. So first is land as a property, and then we thought of property laws. Then we think that, okay, when we talk about equality and equity and justice, empowerment is the key. But that deals with power, and we all know that power is always a dual-edged sword. Then we always think about a wealth, That is when we say wealth, wealth is passed on from one generation to another and then passes on to another generation to next generation and so on. So it's a continuous process of sharing of any asset and using its productive use, which is sort of make us wealthy. And that wealthiness goes with well-being, better lives, empowerment, and so on. We always need to remember that land is not only a private property. I mean, you must be very well aware about a debate on the privatization of property. But before that, it used to be a very common property resource, and therefore, forest as another category which has emerged as part of common property resource, and also the common lands, that is public land which is available. These are two different categories that we need to understand in the context of women and land rights, because the rights that I just talk about, the different forms of right, that is access and then control and management and usufruct rights, they differ in terms of for forest land and also for the common land, and especially in the context of women. And so and you also must be very well aware about women in agriculture, or women using land as a productive asset, whether individually, whether as part of a family, or as a joint common farming kind of initiatives that women have been taking. So one aspect is this. Second aspect is, of course, the food related and food security argument, that if women are able to sort of maintain land-based production, then they are the one who take care of the food security, the nutrition level of the family, the well-being and health of the family, and so on. And of course, when we talk about women in agriculture, the livelihood school of thought is very, very important, because source of livelihood, or right to work or an employment is a major, major concern. So I'm going to keep expanding this slide and talking about it. And so therefore, this is the kind of women and land rights that is emerging, and this discourse is expanding, and so first framework that came from so then you may think, that how this so many aspects of land that have been and especially in context of women and gender development have come up. And so therefore I'm just going back to the sources of it, that to begin with, when we talk about UDHR, that is Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, we started defining community rights and individual rights of humans and human beings. And that is one of the first and foremost framework which is applied in WLR, that is Women and Land Rights. Second very important framework is Indian Constitution, which has given equality or to all human being in front of law, and resource equity and gender justice and so on are incorporated, are integral part of Indian Constitution. Following Indian Constitution as law of the land, the policies that government makes basically women and gender development framework that has been evolved and expanded, where socio-economic, political context are taken care of, which all aim at resource equity and gender justice. And of course, as I said, the global concerns like rights are linked with dignity, well-being, justice, equity, equality, and empowerment. So these are the ones which have been the source of creating and expanding the discourse on WLR. Uh, there are other aspects of this perspective, as I talked about UDHR. Similarly, you must be very well aware of International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights in 1966. Then, of course, the Human Development Report started in 1980s, from 1980s, and that started talking about importance of land as an asset and its ownership. And then be very specific about gender development index, and that index showed, if you remember or if you have come across a reading, that when human development report started being published in 1980 and 1980s onward, that was one of the major debate, that women's population in the world, if we just consider as 50% of the population of the world, women was holding only 1% of the asset. And that was the disparity which started bringing more and more discussion and debates, that why this kind of disparity and inequality exist in all countries or different societies at different points of time, and which reflected as like just one person holding or asset holding in the world, despite the population of women was, I mean, have been 50%. That has been culminated in the Beijing Declaration in 1995, that is the fourth World Conference by UN. And they focused on gender equality, and land also became one of the most important part of it. Then, of course, this eventually, I mean, we have been talking about CEDAW since 1978, but then not many countries have ratified that. And
ये दूसरी यार कड़ा
sorry.
हम्म
Uh, is there a problem?
No, madam, by mistake, somebody opened mic. Over to you,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. And so CEDAW and then Sustainable Development Goal, you know that particularly SDG 15, Life on Land, and 5.8.2 is the target that an indicator that have been talking about land per se. So these are the international instruments that has been offered to strengthen WLR perspective, as well as more of entitlement of women as such. And so now, I think if this is clear, I would now go back to this particular parts of women and land rights. Shall I go ahead? I think if any question, or shall I stop for 1 minute, and then if anyone wants some further clarity or any question, then otherwise I can just continue.
Yes, participant, any quick questions are there from your side? Any one or two?
Any argument, any question, any doubts?
Ma'am, what is agroecology?
Right. Agroecology is now, agriculture has been a science in itself, a technical subject, but then now it has been sort of widening and saying that it is actually an ecology in itself. And so agroecology thus talks about climate change, also various aspects of ecology, and so various occupations related to human ecology, something like, for example, pastoralism. So livestock is in a very small number that individual farmers are engaged with. But then when pastorals read the breed, they are in large number, right? And so therefore, how those human interaction, sorry, the livestock interact with land and land-based production are sort of affected through this chain of pastoralism. So this kind of argument, so how climate affects this, and then ecological components, and the different occupations which are land-based. So in toto, it is talked about as an agroecology. All right,
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
good. There is one more
Yes,
hand
ma'am.
raised.
Mahendra Relan.
Yes,
Yeah, good morning, ma'am.
good morning.
I think you started the note there's a concern that the women's this one figure, this one land holding or this one the ownership figure is coming into one digit, right?
Sorry, please come again.
The women's
Yeah,
land holding ownership on the land or something like that. It's coming to single digit, not in double digit.
yes, yes,
This you raise as a concern.
yes.
May I know what is the position with regard to other countries? No?
So almost all countries are facing very similar problem because of the patriarchal systems. Even
Right.
and therefore this land discourse, land rights discourse, because rights is not just entitlement. You know, it's a gamut of thing. So whether women have access to land, or do they have control? So if you look at not just the ownership, but also tenancy arrangements, or holding, or access to it. So although women are going to women and to forest and collect minor forest produce, but are there usufruct rights established or recognized? Either
That's
through law
that's
or
separate.
through
That's separate.
practices.
That's separate. But I believe in southern part of India.
No, so I'm
Since
saying, so these are all the components which are land based, and very similar kind of set of questions which are asked across different countries. And therefore, so when I said globally in 1980, the asset holding among women was 1%. And that shows that it is across all the world, all the countries, not just India, or not just some continent, and especially South Asia or something like that. But there are cultural, and therefore I talked about codification in law. That are we doing processes that enhances women's land rights? That is a concern. And
that's
that is
okay.
how, yeah.
Sorry, you finish it, please.
No, go ahead. That is how that is how the academia and people working on this issue have been discussing.
No, my thought process was if it is into a single digit across the world,
Yeah.
and you feel it is imagine a case of concern. You mean to say that women are being given lesser attention across the world, or they are facing issues here and there. But I believe if someone in the family see either the men or the son or daughters in whatever form they are getting it, so there should not be a concern at all.
When we talk about son having land.
in the name of son,
not-
or in the name of daughter, or either in the name of
and not
husband.
and his mother not having land, do you think it's the same scenario?
But how it's going to affect? That's what I am trying to understand. How it's going to affect?
Yeah, so who makes the decision about land then? If you have a land and if you want to cultivate, usually it is seen, the pattern is seen is that men always go for cash crops because they believe that we live in cash economy, and therefore they will opt for cash crops, while women will go for mixed cropping, or women will grow for mixed cropping in terms of food security first, and then probably if you required some cash, then cash crops. But or they will go for climate resistant crops, so that the kind of damage due to climate change or adverse effects of climate change, that climate resistance crop will save them and ensure food security. So if this kind of decision making is so very important for human existence, these are the differences that land ownership and land rights make, because who makes the decision? It's a critical concern. And
That is
therefore
because our society is like that. No?
sorry?
That is because our society is more towards this men and all this you said about the particular system, other system and all.
Correct. So how do you bring equality into that? Is a concern. If you say, oh, this patriarchal system is very good, and what is a problem? Then these are the problem. That inequality brings a lot of injustices, and that very soon culminates into violence. Why extent of violence on women is not being controlled? It indicates, one of the indicators is the resource inequity.
Anyway, the question of debate, but so far as the topic is
Mahendraji,
concerned,
I think we can take up. Sorry, ma'am, Varsha ma'am, we
Yeah.
won't be able to complete. Sorry, Mahendraji, for
I
stopping
think,
you.
let me just continue with
Yeah, ma'am.
this,
Okay.
because this debate is anyway,
Yes, ma'am.
it's
Yeah.
really a good debate.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the first and the foremost perspective, that is livelihood perspective of WLR is the foremost perspective, because that's where land as a productive asset has been seen. And then, so women in agriculture or women as a workforce, when we look at them, what happens to those women who are land dependent, and how their livelihood concerns are taken care of, is one of the major concern. So therefore, some women have started working for collective or group farming, because then some small piece of common land is available, and then if they go for group farming, they're able to ensure not only their livelihood, also the food security and other concerns. And I also dealing with the family aspects, family dynamics. For example, if there are a group of single women who are either widows or destitute, or deserted women or divorced women, how do they maintain their livelihood? How do they earn their livelihood is a major concern. So if having a piece of land which can be made productive asset, then this livelihood perspectives hold a very important place in the WLR discourse. The second is the empowerment perspective, where it deals with power, and the power is in terms of resource equity. It is in terms of sharing resources. It is in terms of participation, equal participation, decision making, coping against vulnerabilities and violence, and so on. And that's where the equality and equity perspective is it's very closely linked with the WLR perspective, because that's where that we all believe that the inequality leads to inequity, or inequity and inequality leads to violence or vulnerability. And it's not just against man and women in gender perspective, it is also in terms of when we talk about marginalized communities and the atrocities on SC/ST or the marginalized communities vis-a-vis the powerful landholding communities. So the perspective, very similar perspective, is sort of talked about in terms of WR perspective. Third perspective is this land as a private property, because when we talk about ownership, and especially intestate succession that we we consider is one of the important ones. We really need to understand whether this private property notion, and especially land, because as I said earlier, that if I am a woman, I'm a single woman having a land of say 100 acres of land, and I'm able to make it a productive land, productive asset, then my social status is going to be always very high compared to any other women in my surroundings. That's one concern, of course. So is it a good thing, or is it something that we really need to think about, that land should be, has been a wealth, and then therefore it should be a common property, it should be treated as common property. So what kind of laws that we want to bring in, what kind of administrative procedures that we want to establish, what kind of codification that we bring in for bringing more equality and resource equities in this. Special area laws are also of a concern, because, and special area means Schedule 5th and 6th, and forest areas. I have very recently undertaken a study that is a review of judicial review of 38 cases related to customary law and succession rights of tribal women. And I found that there is a mosaic created by judiciary, because judiciary feel different courts, different higher courts feel that many tribal communities are now Hinduized, and so therefore women are given land as Hinduized community. They are sufficiently Hinduized. Now, the question is that why tribals, there are three important concerns here. One, that Indian Constitution has recognized customary laws, but we are not following customary laws. And then we say we apply Hindu Succession Act. In Hindu Succession Act and central government's notification of 1951, which excludes ST communities, scheduled caste population, from Section 2 of HSA. And then it says that they are excluded to the extent that because they are covered under customary law. But most higher courts have gone for making them sufficiently Hinduized to grant tribal women their lands. Now, as per customary law, customary laws, most tribal communities' customary law prefer the male agnate, male lineage, and giving land to the male agnate. So, now you understand that it's the socio-cultural dynamics play more important role vis-a-vis the kind of what Indian the values Indian Constitution recognize or enshrine. So these are the concerns when we talk about land as a private property and women's land rights. The other concern is the women and land as a wealth, and as I said, which is passing on generation to generation. So continuity of rights as holders and users is a major concern. I have not mentioned it here, but the conservation of land is equally important, because land most of the time it can be acquired by the state, and when it comes to land acquisition, it is only compensated now in terms of cash and not otherwise. So how do we, when we lose this wealth, how do we sort of go about the rights is the major concern. When I say conservation, ecologically speaking, the kind of degradation and desertification of land that we have witnessed, what is the women's role that we look into the conservation of wealth, and especially common land as wealth, and how do we deal with it? Land as a common resource property, we have talked about it briefly, but for example, if you know Gujarat villages very closely, there is no village out of 18,000 plus village in Gujarat where the common land is not encroached. Now, when common land is encroached for mainly for the cultivation purpose or for the housing purpose, Gujarat government has started bringing out notifications, I mean executive orders, that the panchayat members or sarpanch can take care of, sarpanch can take help from police to remove the encroachments. But it has not happened, So when this kind of tussle and power tussle are going between communities, what is the role of women that we see here? If women do not have access, if women do not have management or control over this land and which is encroached, the aspects of conservation or management are not taking place. When we talk about forest produce, if you look at, I mean, all of you know that under Forest Right Act, IFR and CFR, that is individual forest rights and community forest rights, and vis-a-vis IFR, CFRs are very less recognized in numbers. And so what does government want to do? Matlab, forest conservation की बात आती है and management की बात आती है, तो why CFR are not given to so many villages? So that is a major concern. And also a concern of pastoral and nomadic communities, because they have been either using it for livestock rearing or their occupational activities. So how do we deal with common lands? And again, I'm just trying to pose this question in terms of community and also from the gender perspective, that how do, when certain marginalized communities are not able to establish their rights, what happened to those women, as well as what happened to women in general? That in this power dynamics, power tussle, how do women get access to this kind of common lands and common resource properties is a major concern. And emerging challenges, first is of course, climate change and just transitions. When everybody is affected, I mean, all land dependents are affected due to climate change, how do we make this transition in a just manner, especially from the gender perspective, is a major challenge, which is still getting articulated, but is a major concern. Second, we are talking about SDGs, and then every 15 years, the world has decided now to decide this development goals. So Millennium Development Goals में तो there was no talking about life, land as such. But in the SDGs, the SDG 15 specifically talks about life on land. And the approach to SDG has been that they are interlinked, and that's how the targets and indicator of SDGs are articulated. So when we say life on land, which is very, very closely linked to no poverty, zero hunger, gender equality, reduce inequalities, and climate action, are we really able to make a concrete steps and establish women land rights linking all these SDGs? The answer is no. Because every SDG, probably SDG's performance is looked at in a very silo manner. And if we really want to understand the scenario through data, I think there is no data set which really talks about linking this SDG 15 with SDG 1, 2, 5, 10, and 13. So when this kind of processes are not taking place, how do we ensure women, the processes and the outcomes which are women oriented or developed through women's perspective is a point that I just want to talk about. So I think I've taken good amount of time to sort of present the discourse on women and land rights and emerging concerns and challenges. Thank you again having me here and providing the opportunity. Thank you. So I close
Yes,
my
ma'am.
presentation here.
Sure, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your insightful talk. And again, as you rightly stated, it's an issue across world, not in India. Like it's not in double digit itself. And then some of the state, like in, madam, Gujarat, like incentive, like while registration property or stamp fee, it's a concession for the woman. It's a registered in
Correct.
woman's name. So one kind of encouragement incentive we can say. But again, a lot of things have to be done in this particular field. So, madam, let me ask you one last question because there are already our guest has joined, Abdul Suman sir. So, last question, ma'am, what strategy can we implement it to ensure equitable land rights for women globally? Over to you, ma'am.
So again, I'm coming to the empowerment part of it, that we must talk about participation and yeah, I've stopped sharing, right?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, thanks. So basically, the idea is that uh, WLR and empowerment is talked about widely in terms of women's participation, decision making, dealing with power dynamics, how to reduce vulnerabilities, and how to deal with laws which are codified in a manner where patriarchal values and cultural way of operations are still sort of become hindrances. So these are the aspects we really need to deal with.
Sure, ma'am. So thank you very much, ma'am. Sorry, participant, we won't be able to take more questions. So on behalf of organizing committee, we madam grateful for your wonderful time on this Sunday. And then you talked about very pertinent issue. Again, it's not being discussed in our law schools, especially like how the landlords being taught in law schools, and nobody talk about this particular topic like women's rights related to land. So thank you very much, ma'am. I look forward to see you in future events also. Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you.